Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Kurt. Hello, my friend.
Hey, how are you?
It's a beautiful morning.
Thank you so much. We talked about Wednesday night,
Hmm.
and I was supposed to send you the invite. Hopefully, you still have it down.
I
It's
do.
Global Ambassador.
Oh, I love the Global. We're actually staying there this weekend for our anniversary.
Yeah, it's I don't know what room it is, but they have one of the rooms reserved for Schweikert's replacement because he's not running next year, and there's someone from the Republican Party that's taking his place. And you probably know it's not an official announcement, but he's going to be running for governor.
Hmm.
Um, so he's vacating his position, and also the person that Gina Swoboda that's trying to run in his position will take over his position on the congressional blockchain
Okay.
and also on the Ways and Means Committee.
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm looking forward to being there. Looking forward to meeting him. Should be an interesting governor's race. I know Andy Biggs is running as well. I know Andy actually too, but should be a good. I'm really interested in meeting him and hearing from him.
yeah, so I don't know how many. I invited a bunch of people, but I know that I thought I put in for Wednesday. I don't know if you can check your calendar, but because I remember I canceled last Wednesday and I tried to reschedule for this Wednesday. I didn't actually get a confirmation, so I don't know if that took or not.
Yep, you're on at 11 a.m. on Wednesday.
Okay, good. All right, so it did take. All right. If you don't mind sending me the information on that, is it a different passcode?
It'll be, yep, every time you go through Calendly, it sets up a separate meeting. So I'll send that to you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we can get started anytime you're ready. If you want me to just say a few things.
Yeah, why don't you kick us off? And then looks like we've got a good group here. It's 8 or 9 of us that are here with us today. So kick us off.
Great. I want to thank all my guests for coming, including Chantal from Houston, who also is a node owner with her husband. And I wanted to be an early adopter in this blockchain. This was brought to me by someone within my AREAA family that I trust. And although I didn't know that much about blockchain as far as everyday real uses, once I found out what specifically this blockchain was for, specifically for real world assets. And because I'm a commercial realtor, I understand the benefit of having this blockchain in place because it solves some real world problems from some commercial owners who, let's say, want to fractionalize ownership of an asset, want to raise capital. This seems like a really good, cost-effective alternative to doing that. And once this becomes more widely accepted, I think it's something that will certainly drive more users to this. And if you happen to be a commercial practitioner or someone in the real estate space, this actually can help your business because you can help engage more people with conversations on how to solve their problems or offer solutions. And that's what brought me to the space. Um, the Travis is going to give you a great explanation of what this blockchain does. And yeah, I'm sure you'll have questions if you could save those to the end. But I am very excited about this. I bought some nodes early on. I've actually activated them. I'm getting some coins as a result of that I'm staking, and we'll continue to invest more time and money into this as we get closer to actually selling real world assets on the blockchain. So, That being said, Travis, if you'd like to take over for me, that would be great.
Thank you very much, Kurt. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and good morning. Happy Monday. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share the vision of what we're doing at Trusted Smart Chain. Before we get into the nodes and the opportunity that is in front of us, I want to set the stage with something that most people, very few probably ever think about. What if I told you that there are more than 300 million companies in the world, yet only about 40,000 of them will ever make it to the public markets? And out of that, we hear about the same 50, top 50 over and over again, and those are the ones that we hear about. So I want you to think about that for a minute. Out of hundreds of millions of businesses, only a tiny fraction will ever access the capital markets and raise money publicly or tap into institutional capital. So that means less than 1/100th of 1% get through the door. If you think about that for a moment, that's 99.9% of companies that cannot access the system. Now, Kurt, I'm sure if I asked you if 99.9% could not access the system, what would you think about the system? What would you have to say about the
System.
system?
I'd say the system's probably broken.
That's right. And that is how outdated the current financial infrastructure really is. We are still running the global economy on rails that were built for an elite few. The remaining businesses are left navigating either slow banks or expensive loans, private equity, going to friends and family, or nothing at all. It's an old world system that's designed for the privileged and not for the innovators who actually are now moving the world forward. And that's why blockchain matters. This is why Trusted Smart Chain exists, because for the first time ever, we can create open, transparent, regulated digital capital markets that give everyday companies access to something that they've never had, which is a way to raise capital, a way to tokenize real world assets, and a way to move value with more efficiency and fewer gatekeepers. Trusted Smart Chain was built for this moment in time right now. Every node operator in our community is helping power the infrastructure for a system that supports the other 99.9%. So today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to walk you through how it all works, why it matters, and what it means for you as someone who has the potential to be part of that early infrastructure as an infrastructure partner. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it. First and foremost, before we get started, I do want to start with a disclaimer. I am a co-founder of a company called ProsperLink. ProsperLink holds the exclusive contract with the governing DAO for Trusted Smart Chain. A DAO is a legal entity similar to an LLC or a sub-S corporation. It's now recognized by the government, but it's more congruent with Web3, which is the next version of the internet, and more specifically blockchain. The reason being is with blockchain, it's fully decentralized, which means nobody owns it. So in our case, nobody owns Trusted Smart Chain. We operate independently of any specific owners, and it is governed by a charter and essentially run by its members. So the trust nodes, which is what we're going to be talking about today, they're not considered investments. They're actually software. And we legally are not allowed to guarantee any type of income or any type of ROI specifically. And the information that I'm sharing with you today should not be construed as financial advice because I'm not a financial advisor. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in and talk about why we created Trusted Smart Chain. The idea is to bridge the gap between high valued assets and raising capital, tokenization, blockchain, digital currency. We are catering to the 99% that do not have access to the capital markets. The problem has been a lack of clarity, lack of regulation, a lack of trust inside of the cryptocurrency space. And that is why we built Trusted Smart Chain. If you look at the history of cryptocurrency, you go back to 2008, it was actually a lack of trust that led to decentralized currency. There was a lack of trust in centralized institutions after the fall of 2008. In 2009, an anonymous entity by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto introduced Bitcoin as the first digital currency. The idea was to allow for a peer-to-peer transaction without the banks or the government in the middle of those transactions. Now, while Bitcoin was first, the key innovation was blockchain technology. It's a digital ledger that records these transactions across a decentralized network of computers. It lets people trade or share directly with each other instead of going through a middleman like a bank. That's what blockchain does. Of course, there have been some pivotal moments in the history of cryptocurrency that have led to entire new paradigm shifts or entire new industries. One of those would be when Ethereum came out in 2015. Along with that, smart contracts, which are self-executing contracts where terms now could be directly written into code and again reinforced by an actual smart contract rather than an individual or a company. Um, we saw the rise of the meme coins and NFTs in the 2015, 16, 17 era. The question that we have to ask ourselves is, where is cryptocurrency going today? And the answer to that question is tokenization of real world assets. This is a massive shift in the financial system. Fidelity's talking about it. BlackRock is talking about it. Just the other day, um, Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, in the media was being interviewed, and he said that tokenization is like a freight train that can't be stopped. He said that there will come a time where just about everything is brought on chain from a tokenized standpoint. They're comparing it to where we were at the beginning of the internet from an opportunity standpoint. So, what is tokenization? We're using blockchain technology to break down these physical or digital assets into smaller tradable units, which now makes ownership more accessible, more secure, and more transparent. Think in the terms of the stock market. You go buy a stock, you buy a certificate of stock, it gives you a right of distribution or a right of ownership of the particular company that you're investing in. In that same way, now when you go buy tokens, you're buying digital representations of ownership of a high valued asset. The difference here is instead of utilizing the stock market, we're utilizing blockchain technology to fractionalize these high valued assets. Think we're seeing everything from luxury hotels, even artwork. Of course, existing businesses, commercial properties. We do a lot of real estate, commodities, oil and gas companies, just to name a few. To put this into perspective from a just from a growth pattern, just a couple of years ago, back in 2021, when tokenization first really came onto the scene, we saw about $2.6 billion in assets tokenized. This year, we'll see about $500 billion in assets that are now tokenized. And by the year 2030, conservative estimates suggest that we could hit anywhere from 16 trillion upwards to $100 trillion in assets that are tokenized. The question that we have to ask ourselves is why? Why now? Why all of a sudden are companies utilizing tokenization? Well, we've already talked about one of those reasons. 99% of the businesses that are out there will never access the capital markets. But you also have some risks that are there even when you do go public. So the cost of capital to go public nowadays is about $5 million. It's a very lengthy process that you have to go through. And let's say that you make it through that process and you do make it to the stock market. Congratulations, because your dollar turns into 80 cents overnight. Why? Because there is massive manipulation in the stock market. Most people don't realize that it is now projected that as much as 80% of the stocks that are sold through these things called dark pools and naked shorting, which allows these institutions to manipulate the stock to their favor. Now, when you have companies like Hindenburg and you have companies like BlackRock that are shorting your stock, that's not fair. That's not an even playing field. In addition to that, you've got bots that are now manipulating the stocks as well. And so if you are, especially a small cap company, let's say 50 to $100 million, you're wanting to raise capital, that's a very risky proposition. So what's happened is these companies have now found blockchain as a solution. It is a much more cost-effective way to be able to raise capital. You don't have to, it negates the risk of the traditional risks of manipulation that goes on in the stock market. And it's much more streamlined, and it gives these businesses, these real world assets, access now to a global market of investors unlike ever before. Now, let's talk a little bit about why that's such a good thing for the investors. You might say, well, everybody has access to the stock market. Well, not everybody, these businesses, not all of them have access to the stock market. But in addition to that, what's really neat is if you think of a company that goes public, they typically do what's called a private offering. And that private offering is aimed at the elite. It's the good old boys club, the rich get richer, typically have to be accredited investor. Less than 1% of the population gets to participate in these type of opportunities. The cool thing about tokenization is now everyone has a seat at the table. Everyone can participate in the capital raises of these high valued assets. And so this leads to better portfolio diversification, to a wider range of assets. What's happening in the world of crypto right now is cryptocurrency is growing up. If you go back to when it all started just 16 years ago, which is pretty remarkable if you think about it, most of the currencies that we're aware of have been around for hundreds of years. So for 16 years, cryptocurrency is relatively new. But in that period of time, it's gone through several different stages. If you study the success of any disruptive technology, it goes through multiple stages. First of all, in the beginning, most people just tend to dismiss it, right? Disruption never really feels like disruption when it's happening. I go back to when the automobile first came out. People said that, horses were more reliable. Why would you want an automobile? I could say the same when, telephone or the cell phone first came out, or when computers first came out. Over and over again, people tend to overlook or dismiss change because they don't like change. And then people tend to reject it. They reject the idea of this change of a way of doing things. And so you had that in cryptocurrencies case, you had a lot of the banking system that really started to push back on cryptocurrency simply because it was a threat to the very banking system. Now, what's happening is the banks have changed their position. Now, instead of telling everybody that it was a bubble that was going to burst or it was a decentralized Ponzi scheme, which is what these major banks did, now they've adopted the philosophy if you can't beat them, join them. If anybody's paying attention, you've probably watched JP Morgan just partner with Coinbase. They're all now bringing ETFs into the overall mutual funds. Cryptocurrency is being brought into 401ks. Even in the world of real estate, an executive order was recently just signed that now you can utilize cryptocurrency to qualify for a mortgage. I don't have to go sell my Bitcoin and create a taxable event and put that money back into my account and make sure that it's sourced and seasoned to qualify. So what's happening is the banks have changed their tune. So this is very, very exciting because for the investors, they now have a seat at the table. There are some challenges that have to be addressed in the world of cryptocurrency as we continue to march towards mainstream adoption. Most people are surprised to hear this, but 20% now of the United States now owns cryptocurrency. That's a staggering number. It's about 7% globally. And this year, especially, we've seen a huge push where cryptocurrency is being brought to the forefront, and the current administration is making decisions to put the United States as the leader in the world as it pertains to cryptocurrency. But it hasn't always been that way. The government in the past really failed to provide any clarity or framework for these companies to move forward. Now, if you ask my opinion, I believe that was intentional. And it's because of the banking system. If you think about it, if somebody goes and withdraws $1,000 out of the bank and goes and opens up an account at Coinbase and buys Bitcoin, who loses in that case? The banks do, right? The banks lose because what they do is when you go deposit funds with them, they take your money and they go and invest it. And they often invest it at your expense because they make fortunes on you. But what's really happening to the value of the dollar? In the last 5 years, the dollar is down 25%. In 2025, the US dollar is down 10%. It's the worst performance of the US dollar since 1983. So when these banks started to see money that was leaving the traditional banking system and go over to decentralization, and we're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars, this was a very threat to the traditional banking system. So their initial response was they went out there and they created all kinds of FUD. FUD is called fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They told all of their members to stay away from cryptocurrency. They actually, in many cases, would cancel transactions. If you tried to fund your account with certain exchanges and send money to them, they actually would cancel those transactions. Jamie Dimon, literally head of JP Morgan Chase, just 3 years ago, doubled down and called crypto a decentralized Ponzi scheme. Warren Buffett called Bitcoin rat poison and told you to stay away from it. But here's the ironic thing. While they were telling you not to buy cryptocurrency with your money, what do you think they were doing with your money? They were buying Bitcoin and they were building the rails and the infrastructure. They just needed time. They needed time to be able to get to a place where the banking system could monetize cryptocurrency because they knew that it wasn't going away. How do I know that? Because just recently, in the last few weeks, they were now, through an executive order, given the ability to be custodians over your cryptocurrency. In the coming year, you'll log into your back office and you'll see your checking account and your savings account, and you'll see a place now for your Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency coins as well. So this has been happening for quite some time. And again, I remind you that it was only a couple of years ago that the head of JP Morgan Chase was telling you not to touch cryptocurrency. So this was a big threat to the government, according to the government. And so the government stepped in and they said, okay, rather than providing protection for investors, clarity, framework, regulation, we're not going to. They actually declared war against crypto instead. And so what they did is they started filing lawsuits against most of the prominent cryptocurrency companies here in the United States. They filed a lawsuit against Coinbase. They filed a lawsuit against Binance. They filed a lawsuit against XRP. You've probably seen some of these. These are some of the more notable that have been in the media over the last few years. And the claim was pretty much the same. What they said was Bitcoin was not considered a security, but per the Howey test, which was established back in the 40s, and it was a lawsuit that was focused around orange groves, per that Howey test, they made the determination that all of these other coins were considered securities. Now, here's the problem. If you are a security, you are required to go register with the Security Exchange Commission. You have to file a proper registration, whether it's a Reg A, Reg D, Reg S. But in this case, they didn't give any of these cryptocurrency companies the ability to be able to move forward. And if they tried to register with the SEC, they were immediately declined if the word crypto was written on the application. So they were actually told from the top down, the highest levels of the previous administration, not to progress or allow any companies to register as a security. So now what this did is it pushed all of these cryptocurrency companies into a gray area, put them into a bucket, and it gave the SEC a lot of power because now they were in a position where it was kind of like just shooting fish in a barrel. They could go after anybody that they wanted to, and they did. And what this did is it drove a lot of innovation outside of the United States, and it siphoned the progress of these cryptocurrency companies in general. I have a personal experience that I'll share with you because it's relative to why we built Trusted Smart Chain. So I've been in cryptocurrency since 2016. I've always operated nodes. I believe it's a more sophisticated way to be involved in cryptocurrency. I've always looked at it like, why would I want to go to an exchange and buy tokens when I can operate the nodes that mint the tokens that come into circulation? And so in around 2020, the conversation of tokenizing real world assets first came into the scene. And I got excited because I've always asked myself, what's it going to take to get to a place of mass adoption in cryptocurrency? And my belief was we had to move away from hype and speculation to a place of tangibility and substance. There had to be some level of regulation or framework that protected the investors. And so when I heard about tokenization, this was for me the beginning of that adoption. And so I got involved in a project where I was operating nodes for one of the pioneers in tokenizing real world assets. They were tokenizing things like oil, natural gas, gold. And I liked the idea of not just going and buying tokens that had no intrinsic value, instead, buying tokens that were actually backed by a commodity, a high valued asset. So we got involved in this project and it started doing very, very well. And then I was brought in as a consultant to help them to develop their marketing arm for the company and essentially their affiliate program. So I got involved, and a short time after that is when the lawsuits started happening here in the United States against crypto companies, and the company that I was a part of got sued. They were sued civilly for selling an unregistered security. Not only did they get sued, but I got sued as well. And I can tell you that I wasn't an owner in the company, but because I was developing the marketing tools and doing a lot of I was kind of the face of the company, if you will. I was sued for selling an unregistered security without having a financial license. Now, number one, it was civil, but here's what I want you to understand. And here's the reason why I'm telling you this. Um, we had two choices. And the first choice was to go down the path of settling with the SEC and paying a large fine. And that would be forever on my record, civilly, for selling an unregistered security. The second option was we could fight the US government. And I can tell you that that's not a very fun experience. But I'm also a big believer that if you're passionate about something and you believe in something, you have to sometimes be willing to stand up and fight. And so We chose to fight the SEC. And when we made that decision, the government doesn't fight fair. They come at you a number of different ways. The first way they come at you is financially, and they do everything that they can to try and lock up your finances. Number two, they come at you publicly. They actually have an internal press team, and what they'll do is they'll start publishing all kinds of articles to discredit you and attack your credibility, and they publish all kinds of things that weren't true. And then the third thing that they do is they try to drag it out in court until you just can't hang on anymore. Well, we continued. We spent millions of dollars, and we actually ended up winning our case. And not only did we win our case, the SEC, the case was thrown out by a federal judge. The SEC was held in contempt of court for the misrepresentations that they made about the case. They were fined millions of dollars, and the attorneys that brought the case forward were actually terminated from the SEC because of their misrepresentations. And the actual regional office that brought the case forward against us was also closed down. Now, this was a big turning point for cryptocurrency because what it did is it highlighted the abuse of power that was happening at the hands of the SEC. See, they were failing to provide any pathway forward, but then they were going after these companies randomly and at will. And so a few months later, Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, got grilled on Capitol Hill by all kinds of congressmen and women about their abuse of power. And eventually, Gary Gensler ended up stepping down. New administration came in, and David Sachs was appointed as the crypto czar. David Sachs, his first order of business is he said, okay, the war against crypto now is over. We are now inviting those that have been persecuted and prosecuted back to the drawing board, and we are now committed to making the United States the crypto capital of the world. One of the first things that the SEC did is on the front page of sec.gov, you can go back to March and find this, they published that proof of work mining is not considered a security. A few months later, they followed up in saying that proof of stake mining is not considered a security. Well, those items, the reason why that's so important is none of those lawsuits would have taken place had we had that clarity at this point in time. So it's really interesting to see how in such a short period of time the tides have shifted. And we were in Mar-a-Lago in the beginning of this year, where we had a chance to be able to meet with Cynthia Loomis and David Sachs and many others. And now what they're doing is they're now finally providing that framework that's been missing. And they're looking to the innovators and the leaders in this industry to help them create the framework because regulation is important, investor protection is important, but it also you have to be careful not to overregulate cryptocurrency and take away the very essence of decentralization and why it was created. So I share all of that with you because we took that experience and we said, what can we do to be part of the solution? How could we help to provide a pathway forward for these businesses that want to tokenize and they want to do it in a secure and a regulated environment, but on the flip side of the coin, provide investor protection on the other side? And that led to us developing a universally accepted framework for tokenization. What we do is we provide a pathway forward for businesses to now tokenize their assets in a secure, regulated, and trusted environment. What we're doing is we're focusing first and foremost only on real existing businesses with cash flowing assets. We're not interested in any speculative or unproven projects. A lot of times in cryptocurrency, companies will launch a token or even a node project with the means to raise capital, and then they talk about all the things that they're going to do. They talk about the utility that they're going to try and create. Well, we're not interested in those projects because that's where a lot of the speculation is, and that's where a lot of the fraud is. That's where a lot of the rug pulls exist. So we're only working with real existing businesses with cash flowing assets. Now, here is the framework that we require. We require every single real world asset to register as an investment meeting SEC regulations. What does that mean? It means that it forces these real world assets to go get an independent audit upfront, which establishes true value, and it requires all of these assets to be properly valued, properly tracked, and properly secure. This platform that we've now built in this process that we have created leads to transparent reporting on ownership and transaction history. Essentially, what we're doing is we're setting the standard for compliance, transparency, and trust in tokenization. Now, people ask me all the time, how are you guys different than some of the other blockchains that are out there? Because there are other blockchains that are tokenizing real world assets. So what separates you from, say, Solana or Ethereum or some of these other blockchains that are out there. I'm going to play a little 70-second video for you that will summarize very quickly what it is that we do that is different than anybody else in this industry.
People often ask me, how is Trusted Smart Chain different than any other blockchain that's out there? I was recently having a conversation with ChatGPT and I asked the question, how many blockchains are out there today? And it said over 1,000. And I said, okay, how many are true layer one blockchains? We're not talking about, an extension of Litecoin or some type of a white labeled blockchain. And it came back and said 130. And then I asked, well, out of those 130, how many are fully operable? That means that their node network is active, their validators are online, they have the ability to be able to host a smart contract. And it said 30. And I thought, man, we are one of 30 layer one blockchains, which is pretty exciting. Then I asked the question, how many of those focus exclusively on real world assets? And it said 10. And then I asked the most important question, how many of those blockchains require every real world asset to file a registration A, register as an investment with the Security Exchange Commission, have independent audits up front, and annually thereafter? And it said one, Trusted Smart Chain. You want to know how we're different? We're raising the bar in this industry.
So what's happening right now is the government has just given $16 trillion of real world assets the ability to be able to tokenize. The SEC is now working with real world assets and essentially giving us that pathway forward. And Trusted Smart Chain is leading the way, providing the infrastructure and essentially the regulatory and compliant pathway forward. We are the first in the world to do this. And that is what separates us from anybody else. Now, just for some perspective, we're not doing a capital raise. We already self-funded and built a layer one blockchain. We have about 26,000 active nodes around the world that are currently supporting the Trusted Smart Chain. Our validators are live. Our Blockchain Explorer is live. A Blockchain Explorer is kind of the heartbeat, if you will, of the blockchain. Bitcoin has BSC scan. You can go there. You can literally look up any transaction since the Bitcoin blockchain launched, and you can see the transactions happening in real time. Ethereum has Etherscan. We have our own Blockchain Explorer that is available as well. We currently have 12 real world assets that we are bringing on chain at this time. We'll do 10 to 12 as our goal the first year, 20 to 30 in year two, and 100 by the third year. We're not going to stop there, but that's our goal. And that goal was specifically laid out to correlate with the amount of token that is coming into circulation. Because in a moment, you're going to find that the utility of the token, Trusted Smart Chain token, comes from supporting these real world assets and their entire infrastructure. The average value, our sweet spot is 50 million. These are small cap companies that are looking to raise capital. We've also introduced the Trusted Society, which is one of the most esteemed blockchain communities in the world. We're not just selling nodes to support the Trusted Smart Chain, but we are also building a community of node experts, if you will, keeping them informed on everything that happens within the blockchain, because they are the ones who decide the direction of the blockchain by vote. So we do that through regular updates on a daily basis. They get updates on what things that are happening within the community. We have 5 different Zooms a week. They do not have to get on all of the Zooms, but they are available for them to be able to plug into. We also do a monthly node operator update call as well. And then we have live events that are happening every 90 days. Our next event is actually going to be here in Arizona. That is going to be on the 16th and 17th. We also have an event in Puerto Rico on the 30th. We have offices both on the East Coast in Irvine, California, on the West Coast in Irvine, California, and in Tampa, Florida as well. So we do a lot of events and we bring our node operators to these events so that they can hear from our development team and understand and hear from the real world assets why they're tokenizing, what's the status of them in their process of bringing their project onto our blockchain. So there's total transparency that's happening through the Trusted Society. Our vision for growth. So we launched our blockchain in March of this year. We launched with 5,000 active nodes. From there, we've grown again to 26,000 nodes. We just had our token listing about a month ago, which was very exciting. So the token went live. So it is actually trading in the open market. I haven't looked today, but at the last time I looked, we were trading right at around $56 per token, which was a phenomenal response out of the gate. We kicked off a belief building initiative. That is why we hold the events and do the Zooms and the education that we do with our community. We want them to be able to see everything that's happening on the blockchain and get status updates on these real world assets that are tokenizing. So that's why we have a lot of these different events that are happening that people can plug into. As I mentioned earlier, our goal is 100 real world assets over the next 3 years. We also introduced our own decentralized self-custody wallet. What a self-custody wallet means is that you are the only person that has access to that wallet. You hold the keys. There's a saying in this industry, if you don't have the keys, then you really don't have control of your digital currency. So it's a self-custody wallet that allows our node operators to safely and securely manage all their digital rewards. I touched a little earlier on our Blockchain Explorer. Here's the link where you can go and see transactions that are happening in real time. You can go and explore and look at the dashboard of the transactions or the thousands of blocks that have already been written on our blockchain. You can look at the status of the miners, the node health. All of that is right there on our Explorer, and we invite you to come and take a look at that because that is the validation. That is where you can go and see, for example, you see right there it says search by address or hash or block or token. If you had, for example, your node address, Kurt has the ability to go type that in and actually can go and see his node operating live. If you wanted to look up a transaction and you had what was called the hash, which is basically kind of the receipt of the transaction, you could go type it in here and it'll pull up the details of that transaction. So all of that is right there on our Blockchain Explorer. Now, for the rest of today, I'd like to talk with you about utility. I think that when it comes to a successful cryptocurrency project, in my experience, you really need three things. The first thing that you need is a meaningful purpose in the marketplace. And I think that we've established ourselves at the perfect time for the climate as it pertains to cryptocurrency, for helping these companies bridge that gap between high valued assets and tokenization. You also need a community. The community and the culture play a huge role in the success of the cryptocurrency project. And we have thousands of node operators all around the world, and there's more and more coming in every single day. The third thing that you need is what's called a pathway to utility. Utility is real world case use. So if we go back to 2017 and 18, that was the pinnacle of all hype. You had all kinds of crazy meme coins that were launching that had no intrinsic value whatsoever. And at the end of the day, they relied on hype to create the demand for those tokens. The reason they wanted demand is because when there's more buying than selling, price goes up. But one thing that I've learned is when hype leads and utility lags, you typically see a short-term growth spike followed by a crash. When we talk about utility tokens, I'm going to give you some examples of utility tokens. So Bitcoin is now a utility token. It was previously, prior to about 2020, a speculative token that people bought hoping to get lucky, hoping to time the market right. Today, Bitcoin's utility is in the unique store of value that it has created, and it has proven to be an appreciating asset. So people now buy it not just to get lucky, they buy it because it's actual currency that's recognized by the highest levels, that's outperformed the US dollar for the last 5 years and outperformed every asset class on the planet for the last 10 years. In addition to that, people are buying it because the dollar is continuing to lose its value. And in the last 5 years, Bitcoin is up 1,100%. The US dollar is down 25%. So that transition from speculative to utility, now people buy it because there's real world case use. Some other examples, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Hedera, these are all tokens that have real world case use. You might have seen in the media, XRP is getting a lot of attention right now because it's being brought on from a payment processor standpoint, being utilized by a number of different digital or banks now that are looking to process transactions in different ways. Now, we have created a very similar case use for the Trusted Smart Chain token that creates real world utility or demand. So one of the things that we have done is we created a grant, and we take 25% of all of the node sales, which when we sell out on our nodes, we're selling 200,000 nodes. When they're gone, they're gone. We will put hundreds of millions of dollars into a grant. That grant goes to support new upcoming blockchain technology companies that are focusing on tokenizing real world assets. So we currently have 4 grant recipients, and I'm going to give you an example of one of them right now. So T7X is a licensed digital asset platform. Another word for them would be exchange. In the United States, we actually don't have an exchange license. It's a fun fact. So we call them a licensed digital asset platform. This is where people go to open an account so they can buy and sell cryptocurrency, similar to Coinbase or crypto.com or Kraken or some of the other exchanges that are out there. What makes T7X unique is number one, they're compliant in 7 continents around the world. But what's neat is they have chosen to only list token projects that are registered investments. Why would they do that? Because they're catering to a new demographic that is flooding into cryptocurrency right now. See, if you look back over the last 10 years, the people that were in crypto were some gamblers. They were risk takers. They were trying to get lucky and time tokens at the right time. Today, you have a totally different demographic that's coming into crypto, and they want something different. They don't want to go play the speculative game. They want to buy tokens that are A, backed by something tangible. So similar to the stock, right? You go buy a stock, you now have a certificate of stock, which is a right of ownership or a right of distribution of a company that you bought stock in. In the same way, they want to buy tokens that are representations of a high valued asset. So if I own a token, I own essentially part of that luxury hotel that's tokenizing. Number 2 is they want them to be actual registered investments. Why? Because now they're held accountable to a standard. That means they have to go get an audit. They have to be fully compliant with the SEC during the capital raise at all times. So now this provides accountability to the real world asset, but it also provides investor protection. The third thing that they want is distributions and dividends. If you're going to invest in a real world asset during their capital raise, the investors today want 10% on their money. They want a dividend. They don't want to just buy tokens. If they're raising money, they want a dividend for lending them money. So what T7X did is they said, we're going to build a platform that caters to that new retail investor. The analogy that I would give you is some of you probably have accounts with Robinhood. Robinhood was the first to remove barriers, allow you to be able to manage your own portfolio. But what they did was they were the first to give you access to fractionalized shares of stock. And Robinhood today is worth billions of dollars. Well, T7X actually hired the same development team that built Robinhood to build their platform. And they're doing the exact same thing, except instead of giving you access to fractionalized shares of stock, they're giving you access to fractionalized shares of real world assets. So why would we, Trusted Smart Chain, donate millions of dollars to T7X as a grant recipient? The answer to that question is because they have chosen Trusted Smart Chain as the infrastructure, as the blockchain to support all of the real world asset tokens that they list on their exchange. Now, in addition to that, they've also chosen the Trusted Smart Chain token as their preferred token of choice to facilitate all of these real world assets. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to give you an example. So Binance, some of you have probably heard of Binance. You might even have an account with them. They are the largest exchange in the world. Binance also has a blockchain. And that blockchain is the home to thousands of cryptocurrency coins. All of those coins live on the Binance blockchain. Every single coin has to live on a blockchain. So Binance requires anyone that wants access to their ecosystem, including all of the projects that are built on their exchange, or their blockchain, you have to go buy a token called BNB and you have to hold it in your wallet. And that is how you pay their transaction fees. They call them gas fees. Well, just that requirement created demand, created utility. Well, BNB just became the 3rd largest market cap in the world for cryptocurrency and hit a new all-time high last month of about $1,250 a token. Why? Because it is the native token to Binance. In the exact same way, the Trusted Smart Chain token is the native token to the T7X digital trading platform. That means anyone that wants to open an account at T7X so that they can have access to these real world assets that are registered investments that are paying on average a 10% distribution. They have to go buy trusted smart chain. What that does is it creates demand for the token. So let's kind of walk through it so that it makes some sense of it all here so that you can kind of see the flow. So T7X is an exchange. Okay, the best way to look at them is this is where people go open an account because they want access to tokens that are actual registered investments that are paying on average a 10% distribution. Now, T7X is listing coins, different projects, real world assets that are all launching their own coins. Why are they doing that? So they can raise capital. So the Tulum coin is luxury boutique hotels down in Tulum, owned by a billionaire. The Grow Estate token is medical grade hemp facilities across the United States and Canada. It's more of a real estate play than anything. And White Claw Crude is an oil and gas company. Now, these are just a few of the projects that are currently in process of listing right now on the T7X digital trading platform. All of them, all of these assets are tokenized into digital representations. Remember, fractionalized ownership, digital representations that live on the trusted smart chain blockchain. So, what is a blockchain again? A blockchain is nothing more than a network of nodes, computers. In the old days, it was computers. You guys have probably heard the term mining before, mining Bitcoin. Well, what did that mean? It means that people went and bought actual computers, hardware, activated it, connected it to the Bitcoin network, and for supporting the Bitcoin network, they earned Bitcoin every single day. Today, blockchains have advanced and evolved to now they use nodes, software nodes, rather than actual computers and hardware because they're much more efficient and they don't require as much electricity or energy. So I want you to think of nodes as the blockchain's version of cell towers. They just work together to validate transactions and maintain the network. They create a secure and resilient system. Think about the banking system, right? In the old days, centralized system, before crypto came along, the banks, they processed the transaction. You had a central bank that made sure that everything was valid. They also charged you a lot of money and fees for just about everything. Well, remember, the banks have been removed. So in a decentralized system, we rely on blockchains to secure and validate the transactions. When a transaction is created, it's sent out to all of the nodes, and then the nodes work synergistically to validate the transaction. And when it's real and it's good, they validate it. Money transfers from A to B, and then a block is created, and that is a ledger of that transaction, and it'll always be there on the blockchain for all of time, and it can always be accessed, and you can look up that transaction at any time. So why would you want to be a node operator? The reason why is because you now have the ability to be able to participate in that validation process by operating a node. And in return for your support, you earn Trusted Smart Chain token every single day. And you will continue to earn it for the next 120 years as long as your node is active. So the question that I would be asking at this point is, okay, so if I'm operating a node supporting the Trusted Smart Chain blockchain and I'm earning Trusted Smart Chain token every single day, just the same way as people that supported the Bitcoin network earned Bitcoin in the old days, right? And they even still today, they still do it. What can I do with the Trusted Smart Chain token? So let's talk a little bit about what you can do with it and where the demand comes from. So first of all, you can sell your crypto every day if you want to. You can go to the open markets, you can sell it for whatever the token price is currently listed at today, or you can hold on to it. Now, why might you want to hold on to it? I want to ask you a question. I want everyone to think about this. Why is Bitcoin worth $100,000 a coin right now, approximately? 100,000 a coin. 16 years ago, it was worth less than a penny. Why is it worth $100,000 today? There's a formula. It's three things: utility, supply, demand. Utility, supply, and demand. Where's the demand coming from? How much is available? And where is that demand coming from? So what's the real world case use? What's the supply? And why is there a demand for it? So in Bitcoin's case, if you were buying Bitcoin or earning Bitcoin, supporting the network back in 2009, 2010, 2011, Bitcoin wasn't worth much. But if you believed in it and you understood that the demand was going to grow and you understood the tokenomics, that there was only going to be a certain amount of them that were ever created, you would have probably held on to them. And if you did, you fared out pretty well, right? Because as the demand grew, so did the price. In the real estate world, and some of you guys are in the real estate business, um, what happens when there's a limited supply and a growing demand for those homes? What happens to the value of the homes? This applies to any asset. Doesn't matter if it's collectible cars, it could even be baseball cards. So I want to talk to you about where the demand for the trusted smart chain is coming from. As I mentioned to you earlier, there's two ways to create demand. I can either go create a bunch of hype, I could go hire a celebrity, and that celebrity will go tell all of his followers to buy it. And short term, the price will go up and then it'll crash. Most people buy on the way up. The people that have all the tokens, the owners and the developers sell, and it crashes. Or you can have utility. So what we have done is we require every real world asset that comes onto our blockchain, they have to pay their investors with the trusted smart chain token. They don't have an option. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. So let's say that you are a real world asset manager and you want to raise capital and you own luxury hotels. You're going to go get an audit. You're then going to go register with the Security Exchange Commission. When you get approved, you now have 12 months to do a capital raise. You're going to partner with a media company and you're going to go solicit accredited and non-accredited investors around the world. We don't get involved in that at all. This is a registered investment. We don't get involved in that solicitation at all. But here's the thing. People will come, thousands of people will come and invest in these projects because they want something tangible. They like the idea of investing in real world assets now. They're getting a 10% distribution. But here's the cool thing. That real world asset manager has to take his fiat currency and go buy trusted smart chain from the open market. And then he has to pay his investors every quarter with the trusted smart chain token. So here's the question that I want you to consider. When that real world asset manager is going and buying trusted smart chain token, who is he actually buying it from? He's buying it from you, the node operator. And you get to decide when you want to sell. You are in total control. Just like the people that owned Bitcoin early, some of them sold it for a few dollars. Some of it sold it when it hit 100. Some people sold when it hit 1,000. Some people sold when it hit 50,000 or 100,000 or 125,000 a couple of months ago. So you are in control of when you want to sell. What's determining the value? The demand. Where is the demand coming from? The real world assets. Every time a new one comes onto our blockchain, they are required to buy trusted smart chain to pay their investors. Now, in addition to that, we also require them to set aside 2.5 to 10% of the money that they raise. They actually have to go to the open market. They have to buy trusted smart chain and they have to stake it for 5 years, which means they can't touch it. Now, what does that do to the circulating supply? It reduces the supply. So now you have a growing demand and a diminishing supply. Can anybody tell me the usual result when you have a growing demand and a diminishing supply of value? So we've already talked about the gas fees on T7X. You have to, if you want to open an account at T7X so that you can access these real world assets, you have to buy trusted smart chain. Once again, who are they buying it from? The node operators. So this is where the utility is coming from. This is called forced utility. To give you some perspective, Bitcoin had zero forced utility when it came out. Bitcoin today has zero forced utility. People buy it because they see real world utility, but they're not required to buy it. In this case, they are. So that's where the demand comes from. So now let's talk a little bit about supply and ultimately how this plays a role in value. I'm going to use Bitcoin as an example. So Bitcoin did two things that were brilliant. Bitcoin, first and foremost, said we're only going to have 21 million total token. It was programmed in the smart contract. It can never be changed. That fixed supply design creates a unique store of value and, in Bitcoin's case, an appreciating asset. So they also said we're going to have a halving event every 4 years. So what does that mean? Every 4 years, Bitcoin cuts in half the amount of Bitcoin that are being released into circulation, that are being paid to the node operators. Well, they've had four halving events. And if you followed Bitcoin, you know that after every single halving event, Bitcoin has hit a new all-time high. Why? Because of scarcity, because there's less and less available. There's 95% of Bitcoin has already been minted. There's only 400 Bitcoin a day now that are being produced. And the institutions today are buying far more than 400 Bitcoin per day. So those tokenomics have proven to be successful. Every cryptocurrency coin has their own tokenomics. We've studied all of the successful projects and we kept coming back to Bitcoin and said, why would we do anything different? So we just emulated or copied essentially Bitcoin's tokenomics. We have a 21 million total supply. That means that's all the TSC tokens that'll ever be minted. Now, just like Bitcoin, 10.5 million tokens will go out in the first 4 years. People don't realize that if you were fortunate enough to be, see, you could go buy a Bitcoin miner today. You go spend $9,000, $10,000, have it shipped to you, connect to the Bitcoin network along with millions of other people, and you would actually start earning Bitcoin every single day. Here's the problem. First of all, you have to have access cheap power because it's very expensive. Number two, you can't go back to 2009 to 2013 when distribution was at its highest. They've already had four halving events, so the distributions are much smaller today than they were in the first 4 years. Well, that is this time right now for Trusted Smart Chain. So what does that amount to? It amounts to 2.6 million tokens every year for the first 4 years. That breaks down to 7,191 tokens per day are distributed to our node operators, to our active node operators. Now, I'm going to throw this out there just for food for thought, and then we'll wrap up. If in the first year we only mint 2.6 million tokens, and let's say that 70% of our community, which we have a community, I'd say about 70% or so have staked their tokens, which means they're holding them long term. They understand the vision. They're not selling every day. They're holding them because they understand that every real world asset that comes on over the next first year, second year, third year increases the demand for those tokens. But let's say 30% of our community decide to sell in the first year. They're allowed to do that, no problem. That means there'll be about 700, 800,000 tokens that go into the open market into circulation. Well, if we have 10 real world assets that come onto our blockchain, and each one of them is on average worth $50 million, and they're paying a 10% distribution, which means they're paying out about $5 million a year to their investors. That's a $50 million annual demand, but there's only 700,000 tokens in circulation. When you have that kind of pressure, what has to happen to the value of those tokens to meet the demand? Now let's fast forward 3 years. When we have 100 real world assets on the blockchain, and each one is buying on average 5 million a year of TSC token, that's a $500 million a year demand. Once again, who are they buying the tokens from? The node operators. $500 million demand, but in the third year, there's only what? 7.5 million or so token that are in circulation. And out of those, more than half are probably staking and holding them long term. Hopefully, you guys are starting to get the idea of the supply and demand and how that plays a role here. So how do you become a node operator? People ask me, do I have to be technically savvy? What do I have to do? First of all, your node is validating transactions. It's maintaining security. It's adding blocks to the blockchain. It's supporting smart contract execution, and it's storing and ensuring the integrity of our blockchain. So that's what your node is doing. Your job is to make sure that it stays active. So you have to host it. You can host it on your own server if you have one, or like most people do, we have their third-party service that's a data center company, and they will host it for you like you host a website for $1.95 per month. So is per node. So as long as you pay your $24 per year, your node is hosted and you will receive Trusted Smart Chain tokens every day for the next 120 years. Kurt can tell you that from the day that his nodes have activated, and he operates more than one node, he has received a deposit of TSC in his wallet every single day since that time. Now, what does a node come with? Well, first of all, you get a membership in the Trusted Society. So now you get access to all of our online social communities. You get access to the events that we host where you will meet these real world asset managers and you will hear about their projects, why they're tokenizing, why they chose Trusted Smart Chain. You'll be brought into the community. In addition to that, a node right now is currently priced at $3,200. It's a one-time expense. And I say right now because every 1,000 nodes that sell, the price goes up by $100. That will continue until we hit a cap, a ceiling of $10,000 per node. So it's very likely that 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you come down the road, those nodes will be priced twice as much as they are today. Why? Supply and demand. So currently we have about 26, 27,000 active nodes on our network around the world. When we hit 200,000, we're done. That's the most that we will ever sell. Now we have different levels. When you buy a node, that comes with your software and activation. You start earning daily digital rewards. You become a stakeholder in the DAO with voting rights. You get 1 vote per node, up to 200. If you own more than 200 nodes, that's the most votes that you would receive. Now, we have different statuses within the Trusted Society. So once somebody owns 5 nodes, they now are a prestige level within our community. That means they're getting 5 times the distribution. Why would somebody want to operate 5 nodes? Well, if one node is currently distributing 0.20 token per day, 5 nodes would mean that you are earning 1 full Trusted Smart Chain token every single day. In a moment, I'll go over to our Explorer and I'll show you our current listing price. So we have different levels. We have another level at 20 nodes, which gives you 20 times the distribution. And then we have our elite levels, Luminary at 50 nodes. We have Titan at 100 nodes. And we have Icon at 1,000 nodes. That's the most that someone can buy because we want to maintain decentralization. Now, we do have hundreds of luminaries and titans in our community. And the reason why is because a lot of people have found, and a lot of people utilize Section 179 under the tax code. And by the way, this is not tax advice. I'm not a CPA, so go talk to your CPA. But I can tell you that I've successfully for years utilized 179 because it allows you to write off software as a business expense. This time of the year, money is moving around. People are looking for opportunities to be able to avoid capital gains. And so that might be a discussion that you might want to have with your attorney. But I can tell you that we have a lot of higher level individuals that are coming in because they want to accumulate as much token as they can because of A, our meaningful purpose in the marketplace, B, the timing of what's happening in the world of crypto, and C, because of the utility that we've created within this ecosystem. Now, I will close with just this sentiment. I'm a big believer that smart money invests in the infrastructure. Smart money invests in the roads before the rush. I think of the gold rush, and I think, it was the people that built the railways and the people that sold the shovels that made all the money. And in the same way, I, in crypto, have done very well looking for paradigm shifts and getting involved in the infrastructure. The infrastructure is the blockchain. And so I look at the rush as the $16 trillion that's coming down the pipeline that's looking to now raise capital utilizing blockchain. The road in this case is Trusted Smart Chain. We're first. And what makes up that road is our node operators who essentially are supporting the blockchain and earning Trusted Smart Chain token every single day for their support and their participation. That token that they're holding is in greater and greater demand with every real world asset that comes onto our blockchain and every real world asset that's listed on T7X's digital trading platform. So I know that's a lot of information. Kurt, I'm going to kick it back to you. Sometimes it can feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose, especially if you're newer into crypto. But we are here. We've got a lot of great resources to help you do some additional due diligence. And I'd be happy to stick around for a few minutes and answer any questions that somebody might have.
First off, I want to say thank you to Travis for giving us a great explanation as to the blockchain, trusted blockchain, and the utility that is providing and selling real world assets, providing solutions to owners of that assets on how to monetize um, those assets, whether they need to fractionalize them or do a capital raise. It is another way of doing business, a way that's maybe different than what's been done in the past, where it's only been reserved for basically very big players in the market. And that this actually allows for smaller players to actually, with 50 million or less, to actually find a way to sell assets without having to go through major brokerage firms, through a capital raise, through doing a SEC exchange filing, which can take 9 months to a year at a cost of millions of dollars with no guarantee of success. So I think that this is something that is very interesting, something that I grabbed onto early on. I wanted to be an early adopter in this. And while I've been a part of this, I've seen them actually, make it through some pretty big hurdles as far as actually activating the blockchain so it's functional now, to actually minting coins, to actually have them in a wallet where it's on an exchange and you can see those current that cryptocurrency actually being exchanged at a value that you can see publicly. And they've identified, 10 to 12 assets that they plan on putting on the blockchain in the near future. So with each hurdle that they jumped, I've become more and more invested in this emotionally because I think it's a game changer for people for the future on how business is going to be done and how they can kind of set up their family for future success, if they believe in this technology. So, with that being said, if anyone has questions for Travis, he is the expert. I only know a little bit, and I'm constantly doing my due diligence. And one thing I wanted to say is everyone really needs to do their own due diligence on this because we each have our own kind of investment profile and risk profile. And depending on what that profile is for you, you need to maybe do more due diligence than some other people that grab on very early on. So I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to ask good questions. If you need to come back to another session, it took me actually 3 times to be on this to actually be comfortable enough to buy nodes. But that being said, does anyone have any questions?
I'll pull up the Explorer real quickly. And then what I would suggest is for anyone, Kurt will follow up with you and send you a reference guide, which is a great next step. A lot of great resources that are there that kind of walk you through how to find the Blockchain Explorer, how to find our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of great videos on our YouTube channel. How to find our charter, our governing charter. It's a 60-page document that governs the trusted smart chain. So there's a lot of wonderful information that's there in that reference guide. And so that would be kind of the next step. And in the meantime, I'll just pull up real quickly here just the Blockchain Explorer so you guys can actually see the Blockchain Explorer is live. And you can see right now, currently today, the Trusted Smart Chain is trading at $55.63. We listed about a month ago, and keep in mind that we are right around the corner from our first real world assets. They've already filed their Edgar filings with the SEC, starting to buy the Trusted Smart Chain token. And so we're very excited about that. We have about 4 more that are getting ready to file their Edgar filings right now with the SEC. And like I said, we'll have 10 to 12 on within the first year is our goal. We already have those signed, and we probably have about another 30 to 40 that we're in discussions with right now. We're kind of handpicking the low-hanging fruit, if you will, because we want very solid projects coming onto the T7X digital platform up front, because that allows them to establish themselves as a great platform for people all over the world to come to access those real world assets. And so we've got a lot of really exciting things that are currently happening right now, but we'll get you the reference guide, which also has the link to this Explorer also.
Hey, Travis, early on that you had mentioned that locally there was going to be an event on the 16th and 17th. Do you have any more information on that? Because we do have some local people on.
We do. So there's a club called Empire Scottsdale. It's in Old Town Scottsdale that we're going to be hosting. Friday night will be more of a beginners for crypto type of an event where we just do some, a 1 hour, what I wish that I would have known about crypto when I first got started type of event. Following that, it'll be a cocktail party for all of our node operators, giving them an opportunity to be able to come together from all over the world, or all over the country, I should say, And then the next day on Saturday, we'll kick off probably right at around 9 o'clock. And then the first 3 hours will be education about the blockchain. You'll be hearing from our developers. You'll be hearing from our real world asset managers that are currently tokenizing their projects. They'll come in and talk about their project. They'll talk about why they're tokenizing. They'll talk about why they chose Trusted Smart Chain. So it's just a great day of education and belief building. Usually, the result of those that come to our events is they walk away wanting more nodes because they start to fully understand what it is that we're doing, and it starts to click for them. And but more than anything, it's an opportunity just to meet the owners, the founders, the developers, the people over on T7X side. Everybody comes together, and I think you'll find that it's a great community to be a part of.
It's this coming Friday or next
It's
next month?
January 16th and 17th, 2026. And we'll be
Okay.
we'll be releasing we just formalized those dates on Friday, so we'll be releasing an event page and all of the details that go along with that.
Thank you very much. Any other people with questions? Okay, I guess not. Travis, you just did too good of a job. You answered everyone's questions in your presentation. So thank you so much. For people that need a little bit more information or need to hear the message again, I do have one on Wednesday if you want to join that one. We'll be having some other people as well. And then when the event happens in January, I'll certainly let you know about that information as well. I personally plan on being in Puerto Rico. I believe it was the 28th and 29th, being at that event. And I really want to meet some people with some real world assets on why they're using Trusted Smart Chains. So
That's going to
looking
be another
forward
I
to
great
that
will
event.
event again.
I will say that a question that I think people will have in the future is why didn't I do this earlier? That's most definitely a question you'll have to yourself.
Well, I agree with you.
100%. Why didn't I know about this earlier? Why didn't I do this earlier?
Well, it kind of comes back to if we all knowing what we know today, if you had a chance to go back and mine Bitcoin in 2009, 10, and 11, would you do it? I mean, that was a huge paradigm shift at the time. The new paradigm shift, and I encourage you to go do this, is tokenizing real world assets. It's the biggest discussion in all, I mean, it's all over the media, and it is the number one conversation in the world of finance. Every major institution's talking about it. So to me, I look at that as a paradigm shift, and I'm very excited to be involved in the infrastructure ownership. Just so you guys know, all of the owners and founders that started Trusted Smart Chain, we did not do an initial coin offering. That's very important. We don't have this large wallet of tokens, which is how rug pulls happen. Basically, what happens is the developers and the owners issue themselves a large amount of token, and then when people start buying and the price goes up, the owners and developers basically sell and take off, and they make tons of money. We did a fair market launch, which means none of the developers, none of the owners, none of them got any token. We earn token the same way everybody else does by operating nodes supporting the trusted smart chain. So our success is the same as your success, which is supporting the blockchain, earning digital rewards, and continuing to focus on bringing real world assets onto our platform. So that's something that I hopefully will also give you guys some peace of mind as well. All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Happy to answer any questions at any time. Get in touch with Kurt. He'll be able to tell you what the next steps are. He'll also be able to get you that reference guide, and that would be a great next step in your due diligence process. Thanks, Kurt. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.